too. Here we go. Okay, forgot to do that. So last year, she licensed an impressive 6 products with 5 in the toy and game industry alone. Looking ahead to 2024, we are excited to see at least 6 new products make their way to retail under her guidance. April is also sharing her vast knowledge through the Tabletop Game Design Master Course, which she leads alongside Ed Garton, promising to be an invaluable resource for aspiring designers. In addition, there's so much here to speak about. Okay. In addition to her design and teaching endeavors, April is a sought-after voice guest presenter at Inventor Groups of America and contributing to numerous podcasts. Her insights have also been featured in influential books, including Licensing Your Ideas Using LinkedIn by InventRight founders Stephen Key and Benjamin Harris, as well as Inventor's Secrets. April's extensive experience as a former InventRight coach further underscores her commitment to nurturing the next generation of inventors and designers. Tonight, we're looking forward to diving in to April's world, exploring her journey, the secrets behind her success, and the trends shaping the future of game and toy design. But before we do that, I'll open with a few burning questions I've been just eager to ask April. And these questions are going to lean more towards the folks who are at advanced stages of their licensing career or are already serial product developers. Then we'll do a brief review of some of April's marketing materials so folks can see examples of the professionalism and polish required to get those deals signed. I know so many people are eager to see some examples. Following the materials review, we'll open the call for an audience Q&A session. So please remember, stay tuned until the end as I have some roundtable announcements that you won't want to miss. Without further ado, let's give a very, very warm welcome to April Mitchell, a trailblazer and inspiration to us all. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. Jennifer, that was the best intro I think I've ever had. I think you may need to rewrite my LinkedIn profile for me with that information because that was fantastic. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
I feel like I only scraped the surface, April, but you let me know what I can do for you. I'd be happy to do that. So April, thank you for being here. We're already running out of time, it feels like, so let's jump in. Again, a few questions now. We're going to tailor this for the folks that are a little more ahead, but don't worry, we will get to the folks that are still on the earlier stages. So, okay, many people approach product development from the standpoint of creating solutions to existing problems. As a serial inventor in the toy and game industry, where problems may not necessarily exist, do you have any particular techniques that you use to generate new ideas?
Wow, that's a good question. And I want to preface this everyone. I'm recovering, so I'm a little brain foggy. So if I seem a little slower than normal, that's why. So I'm glad you brought that up because my first products I designed were in the housewares industry and they were fixing problems. And then I thought, oh, we're playing games at home and we're making games. I can do the same thing in the toy and game industry. Well, when I first started out, I was only tweaking existing things. I only changed something little on it. And I didn't realize that, especially in games, you can't just slap a new theme on something typically and license it. You can't just change one thing in a game. You really need to bring something new or really make a lot of changes, right? Like maybe be influenced by your favorite games and say, I love this mechanic from this game. I love how they collect cards over here, but I like the dice rolling from this game. And, now I want to move on the board a whole new way and create something completely different, but it's influenced by other things. And so I think that's a key component, whether you're just starting out in the toy and game industry or you've been in for a while, and maybe you're feeling like I'm not having much traction, but everyone loves playing my games. Something to think about is, did you truly make a whole new game, or did you or is your game influenced by other things and then you made a new game, or are you just changing something a tiny bit? So
Mhm.
I would, because I learned that I was not doing enough work in my first few games when I came into the toy and game industry, because I was used to just changing one thing from other industries that worked in other industries. And so it didn't work in the game industry. Now I will say my basketball hoop that can called Hooked on Hoops that can latch on to everything. That wasn't a ton of change there, but we made a back of the hoop that could literally hook onto anything, right? So that's solving a problem in a sense, right? But
Yeah,
for,
yep.
but for tabletop games, I'm finding that I really needed to take the influence of games and maybe take them and add them to a fun trend and a new theme, and like piece different things together that I like. But you don't always have to necessarily come up with a new mechanic. Now, there are games that we've completely, either me and my co-designer have completely come up with new mechanics for that we haven't seen done, but they also have influences from other games where someone might say, oh, this reminds me a little bit of this game, or this reminds me a little bit of checkers, or this reminds me a little of Yahtzee, or whatever it may be, because
Yeah,
they can see that there was influence there.
yeah.
And I would say take those influences and then do some drastic change and addition and more to it than a theme. But I think a lot of people get caught up in, and I did at first, thinking I could take my favorite spoons card game and change a new theme and just change one thing about the game, and it wasn't enough. So I'm learning what can be enough, and what's enough for one company might not be enough for another company though too, right? So you
Yeah.
might make some different changes and influences. But I really think it's important, and sorry if I'm going off on a tangent here, don't be afraid to loop me in because
I
I
know.
can just go. I think it's important, as in the game and toy industry, to lean into what you know and what you love, but also play other games and learn different game mechanics that you've never used before. Because even if you're designing, let's say, for the family category, and maybe you haven't really played a lot of strategy games, if you
Mhm.
can play some strategy games, you might learn something that's very light strategy that you could bring into a game that you've never would have tried before if you haven't played and tried different kinds of games and categories in the game department.
Right. So diversify your experience to be able
Mhm.
to pick and choose and, dig in the tool belt a little bit for new ideas. That's kind of the idea then. Okay. All
Thanks
right.
for putting that all together. She wrapped it up so nicely for me. Thanks, Jennifer.
Okay.
Yes.
Um,
Diversify.
diversify. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
So as we know, as I mentioned, you have about 1 million licensing deals. You currently have, I think, 6 products on the market. So I'm curious, what would the average or maybe a range of turnaround from the time you get the licensing deal to the time it actually hits the market? What are you looking at there?
Yeah, I would. Are you saying across all industries? Like,
Well,
uh,
in your experience, and it can tailor
yeah.
for games to just, try to limit
So,
the breadth of
right.
it.
Typically, I would say it's going to be a year and a half to 2 years.
Uh,
Um,
okay.
I would say for my game, shape formers is what I used to call it. It's called formworms now. It's up here. Sometimes I go back to the what I was pitching it as.
Yeah.
That was signed in so Shy Tag was just this past November, and it came out. This game Formworms came out about September, October, and it was signed the year before that. And I think the
Wow.
thing to remember is companies, but it was pitched to them a year before that, right? So it was pitched, and then another year later it was signed, and that's after
Okay.
they had already, made samples and tried things out, and then it was presented or out for retail another year. Um, but I think this, if you're going for, when you work with smaller or mid-sized companies, things can come out faster. For example, 3 of the games I licensed just this past fall 2023, will be ready by Q4 this year.
Wow.
And that's a good fast turnaround. So a couple of them were presented just last month at London Toy Fair in Nuremberg. So even though they were licensed in September, one was licensed in November, one was licensed in December, that one will be ready to be shown at shows in June. So that's a quick turnaround. I would say 2 of the 3 companies are smaller mid-sized companies, and one's a mid-sized company, and they were doing a quick turnaround. So, but it really depends on the company and what they have that need for. Sometimes they say, we've got a hole right here and we've got to find that right thing for it. And if they find it, they might, like put the pedal to the metal and go. But that I would say that's not typical. Like that just blew me and my co-designers away, that they were going to be ready in 2024. So I would say expect 1 year to 2 years in the toy and game industry for sure.
Okay. One of the things that you have licensed is the caterpillar, which is adorable and not a toy. So I heard you speak in a previous podcast, and you mentioned that the housewares industry is much different, and I got the sense that maybe harder than the toy and game industry. Could you speak a bit about your experience with the housewares industry and how they different?
I honestly, personally, this is me, but I think for me, it was harder to break into the toy and game industry because it took me a while to get something licensed. But I feel like the toy and game industry is very open to inventors. So it depends on how you look at, like, what's the harder thing. For me, solving a problem seemed easier. Like when my over-the-door hook, that was, my second licensed product, but the first one that actually made it to the market. My first one never made it to the market. And then the caterpillar is considered novelty, but it is housewares. Like that one was that was the only company I showed it to licensed it.
Wow.
And I only had to show them a drawing that my son made for me. And it's so, I mean, that's not typical, right? So, but it did take a couple years because it was during COVID, and then the shipping whole fiasco with shipping. So like things were delayed with that. But that was me saying, like, studying that company though. That was probably the 10th, 12th, at least, product that I submitted to that company, to Fred and Friends. And so I studied them, and I met them when I was at the houseware show when my product Right Height hook came out. And I got their catalog and I studied it, and I was always racking my brain for the right product for them. And learning, that the name of the product for them was the icing on the cake. Like it had to have function, and it had to be fun, but it had to have a real function, and the name had to go with it. And so once I, had ideas, I would just send them in. And that one, they said, we love this. And then they couldn't do it. So they asked to hold on to it and try again the next year. And honestly, we always tell people, when I coach, like, keep pitching it. But I was pitching dozens of things anyway. And I wanted to get one license with them. And I didn't have time at that time to make a 3D prototype and make marketing material. So I said, yeah, keep it, because that was fine for me at the time. Typically I wouldn't say to do that, but once in a while, I'll do it. And it worked out. The next, after a few months, they gave it another go. So I apologize. I don't know that I truly answered your question, but I think for me, the housewares industry, in a sense, is, and I have a couple other products I'm going to start pitching again. But I feel like it's very cut and dry in the fact of you're solving problems typically, or at least for me and my products that I do in the housewares, I feel like they solve problems. But in the toy and game industry, what's easier about that industry is the doors are open, and I feel like the people are there and they're easier to find. But I've also been in the industry a long time. So I didn't license my first thing in the toy and game industry for a couple years. It took a while for me to just find that right momentum and space, and just things, learning the companies and the relationships and really what they were looking for and how could my product be different enough to fit in. And now I'm starting to get there. So
Right. Well, I think you're blazing a trail, not just starting to get there. But
thank you.
okay, so you mentioned something that I wanted to ask you about as well. Your first product was licensed, but it didn't make it to market. Can you tell us what happened with that? Do they still have it? Are you going to try to get it back, give it to somebody else?
Good question. Yeah, so luckily it was a 1-year contract, and that was my first product. I was just so excited to license something. There were a few red flags, like they were really rushing me with the contract and things. And then when they started to actually work with me, it was not, I was not really satisfied with the work they were doing. Unfortunately, it just didn't look good. It wasn't great. And luckily, I know they only had a year, and they did not get it to retail in that year. So I was able to write, in the contract, there's always different ways things work out. But I was able to write my letter and ask for it back because they didn't get it out into the market. And so I do plan on repitching that someday. That is one of my patented products. And so it's been patented now for like 10 years, you guys. Like it hasn't been in the market. But what happened for me was I started just really spending my time in the toy and game industry, and I've made all the relationships. So I just keep working on more projects there. And what I did was my product, I redesigned it, and it's still, like, the patent still holds, but I made it a little different than I pitched it before. So now I have like the 3D prototype. So now I need to make the marketing material and get it back out there. It's just finding times windows to do that, because with the toy and game industry, there's certain like times I go to shows. And before I go to shows, I want to make sure I have 5, 6 new products ready to go to those shows. And so then I have like time windows to work on products in other industries, or where I feel like that's what I do, because I want to make sure if I'm going to go to a show, I'm going to give it my all. So like right now I'm pitching a product in the fishing industry, which is totally new to me. And there's not many companies on LinkedIn. So this is totally a whole, like, whoa, April thought she knew what she's doing, and now she's got to relearn the system again.
Starting from the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. And pick up the phone a little more than sending my LinkedIn messages that typically work so well. But so now I'm trying to spend certain times of the year pitching other products than while I gear up for the toy and game fairs and shows.
Okay. While also taking care of your family and doing your LinkedIn video series and everything else. I don't know when you sleep. I have one more question I want to ask, and then we'll look at the marketing materials. And hey, Betty, I see you there. We'll get to the Q&A for the audience in just a few minutes. So if you want, Betty, you can put your question in the chat so you don't forget it, but we'll get to you for sure. My last question before we move on, I know you've worked with a few partners at different stages. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Have you ever found a situation where working with a partner was a little more hassle than it was worth, for example? Or are you able to keep a very strict schedule where you have weekly Zoom meetings, same time every week, to keep the momentum going? How do you navigate finding a partner, keeping a partner, making it work, having it fair? How do you deal with all of that?
That's a good question. So I think a lot of it is learn as you go. And I think before one, I want to say working with a partner, I think is fantastic. And if it's something you haven't done before, I would highly recommend trying it once. And the reason being is we all have our specialties. We all have the things we are really, really good at. And if you can find a partner where you both get to shine, you're
Yeah.
right. And you both get to lean into what you're the best at. And you are both working on, when you brainstorm, you feed off of each other and you come up with an idea that is so amazing that it's something that you couldn't do on your own. Or maybe one person has a spark of an idea, and but once that other person hears it, it just kaboom comes up with something else, and it's just feeds off of each other, and it's fantastic. And so I think the key is to finding someone that you work well with. And unfortunately, you don't know 100% until you try it, right? So you might
Yeah.
try working with someone and then think, oh, we did okay. And then you work with someone else and you're like, oh, wow, we're like a perfect match, right? Or maybe different people bring out different things in you. And so I've had the pleasure to work with different people in different scenarios, and I've had really great partners. And at the same time, I will say, you should not partner. I don't think it's a good idea to partner with someone just for someone to do a part of the project you don't like or you don't shine in. I would say if it's just because you need a video or because you need a prototype or you need something like that, pay them. Pay the person to do that work, because otherwise,
Okay.
if you came up with the idea and you're doing the large amount of work and you just needed one thing and now you're pitching it,
Yeah.
did you really partner, or did they like do one thing and now they get half of everything you make for the rest of your life on that one project? So really think about that, because if it's something that you've already got it hashed out. So now when I work with partners, there's a couple of them where we'll give each other advice on something, or they'll say, I think you've got that pretty much figured out. I would go this way, but let's not partner on that because that's all you, right? So being able to really figure that out, but it takes time. And but I do feel like it's something that once you do find that good match, whether it's one specific person or maybe a couple different people, then I feel like you can actually crank out a lot more ideas
Oh, I
when I
imagine
work with
so.
partners, right? Because we could crank
Right.
out something and they're doing this and I'm doing this and now I'm doing this with his other partner and I've got different things going on. But what you don't want to do is lose yourself. Sometimes I will partner up so often. I'll say, I can't take on any more stuff. I got to work on things that are just mine or just mine and my family's ideas. And so I try to keep like a certain ratio that I have in my head of how many products I partner up with versus how many I do on my own. Because sometimes I can end up partnering in certain times and then not work on other things that are important to me. So just, try to get some ideas down on like why you want to partner and what you're looking for in a partner, and see if you can find that match
Okay.
with someone, and these groups are the perfect place to meet people and see how you connect with someone and how you jive, and I've gone on meetings with possible partners before and we just chat and we get together, we get to know each other. But I will say, sometimes it's just being able to have that one-on-one time with someone that you meet like in a group, right?
Yeah.
And then see if, hey, maybe we should work on something or talk about working on something together,
Yeah.
and see that. With that note, I will say, and I don't that I am full on partners. I
Nope.
can't handle all my partners right now. So a lot of times people will ask like, hey, I've got this idea, can you pitch it for me? And I'm like, no, I just can't. I can't do that, because then that's a service. There are people that do that.
Right.
Um, but not something that I can take on at this time. But again, partnering is something I think everyone should consider and try it at least once.
That's great insight. Thank you for that. I want to take one quick second to welcome Dudes here from the Philippines. It's nice to see you. I'm so glad you can make it. And Pam has joined us, and Billy Rose is in the house. So welcome to the folks that came in late. So if you're willing, April, would we be able to take a quick peek at some of your marketing materials?
So I do have a one pitch deck I can share with you guys. Some people may have seen it already,
Okay.
but I also have a couple slides from a previous presentation that just talk about briefly what to look for or things to think about, things you want on your sell sheet in the toy and game industry. So I'll go ahead and share that quick, and then I'll talk about the slides.
That's
So one thing to know, everyone, is that that I think is really, really important is that we all.
This morning and passed with flying colors. Good.
Oh, is
So
it?
that was good.
Hey, mute yourself, please.
Oh, I wasn't sure if he was telling us. Is that my background is in education. So I'm a certified teacher and I'm a mom of four. And I had no professional training in the industry. It was a learn as you go, right? It was watching videos. It was picking up Stephen's book, One Simple Idea. Of course, then coaching. Then I only have my experiences, but then all my students' experiences as well that I got to see. And it's so great seeing so many people on here. I have a couple students on here tonight, and then people that have been, I feel like, a part of my journey for so long. So I just want to say I see you guys, and I appreciate every time they come. I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna have anything else to learn from me, but then some people will send me a message and say, hey, thanks for this info. And I'm like, oh good, I'm so glad you learned something, because I know you've heard me talk like a dozen times. So I really appreciate you all so much, and everyone's support throughout all these years, because it's been quite a journey. So okay, here is my screen. And I got a messy desktop. I know. Let me bring this up. Okay, so really quick, some things that I like to share about sell sheets. So marketing material, game industry, we've got sell sheets or pitch decks. And then of course, sizzle videos. You will always hear me say, you need a sizzle video. I will always say that. I don't always do sell sheets anymore. I will tend to lean towards a pitch deck. And someday, once more of my games are out there, I can share more pitch decks, because they're always really neat to see. And I'll share one in a moment, an old one, and not the best one, which is maybe great for everyone to see that it doesn't have to be perfect.
exactly,
But when you're thinking of sell sheets, the thing you want to think about is back of the box. What is on the back of the box? And if that's the only thing you remember for tonight, then you are going to be golden. Okay. You're going to be golden, because think about when you look at a game, you pick up a game from any store and you turn it over because you want to know what it's about, right? The front of the box tells you just a little bit, right? Here, throw burrito, front of the box, a dodgeball card game. You will throw these. You're like, oh, this sounds fun. Tells you, oh, it's a party game, ages 7+, 2 to 6 players. What's this about? And you turn over the box, right? And you see a little bit more. And always on a sell sheet, you're going to want these important things, like some great images of quick how to play, like steps 1, 2, 3, at least. And then information of what kind of game it is, who's it's for, how many players, and then the time. That's usually important as well. Sometimes they'll show the contents and they'll tell you what's in the game box, which is always fantastic too. This is just an example of a toy. It tells you, in 4 simple images of how to play with this. And then it gives you kind of like these check marks, these bullet points of what's so great about the game, or in this instance, the toy. Here's another one, really simple. It shows you the game all set up, which is nice because then you know what it looks like and it's showing you those contents. And this one, instead of like a 1, 2, 3, it gives you a very short paragraph of how to play the game. And then the important things, because a lot of times when I'm pitching some companies, and once you pitch to certain companies over and over, you'll know exactly how to pitch to them, but they will want to know, and they write down when they're taking notes, they want to know who can play this game and how long it will take and what category, because they may sell several categories in their game company. And so I always like to say, this is a party game. It's for ages, in this case, this isn't a party game, but let's just say it is. Ages 8+, takes 20 to 30 minutes, and it's for 2 to 6 players. That all goes in because they're looking for specific slots to fill. And so when you can give them that information right up front, then they're like, okay, I got this. Now I can pay attention, because otherwise they're listening for that information. Like they're listening in your pitch to get that information down. If you could tell them it right away, that's great. And then they can share this with other people in the company once they know if it passes them or they think it could be a fit, then they'll pass it on. And here's another really simple example too, is a Monopoly box. It shows you all the contents. Most people know how to play Monopoly already, so it doesn't even tell you the basics here, but most people know how to play Monopoly. So they're kind of just figuring that, but then it's the contents and tells you the information really low, small here below. Now for, sorry, let's see. Wow. Come on. So this is for my game Former, which I used to call Shape Formers when I was pitching it. So there's a slide breakdown, and I can, well, if someone wants to write it in the chat, we could do that too. The first slide you always want to do is confidential. Slide number 1 should be say confidential somewhere on it. You don't even have to put the name of the game yet on the first slide. You could just write confidential, but you need to write confidential and then your information. Okay, so confidential is number 1. Then you have a tee up slide. So let me go ahead. So the tee up slide kind of explains why I chose this product. Like, why am I making it? And here I showcase that, you know, combining shapes, games, and the measuring tool we were all told not to play with as a child, like they collided. And this is what this game is about. And the thing is making shapes and learning shapes is something every child needs to do. It is just part of the day-to-day. But then that learning tool, that measuring tool is so fun to play with, but yet it's a tool and we're not supposed to play with it. And I'm like, why not? It should be played with. And so I've used that to try to do like an intro to the companies when I was pitching to them. So you have your confidential side, the tee up slide, and then a marketing slide. The marketing slide is optional and sometimes can be kind of, to me in my mind, it can be like kind of meshed with the tee up slide. Sometimes your tee up slide might be saying this show and this show are popular and everyone's craving this trend. And so that's why we created this game. And then you'll go into, you know, why you did that. Then I personally would show a video after that. But what I did here was I gave some marketing information, right? So I talked about what is currently on the market. And I'm just going to whiz through here. And you really only need to do one slide of that. I did a couple. I'm like, listen, people, there are a lot of things on the market and these do this and these ones over here work on this, but there's something missing. Like there could be more fun to be had without realizing you're learning. And then I would show them the video and then you go into your product a little more, which is the product concept slide. So we've got confidential, tee up slide, marketing slide, video, then product concept slides. Here I zone in more about what's different about shape formers. And here I talked about the fun comes first. You don't even realize you're learning. You're learning fine motor and gross motor and all these things. And I talk about what's so special about the product. Okay. And then here I talk about it more. If you've got more to say, do it, but don't feel like you have to have a lot of slides. 5, 6, 7 slides max is really only what is needed. And photos are good. If you have copy, which is, you know, the verbiage, right? You don't need a ton of it. Here, I also wanted to show that you could do mini size, right? It could be fidget size. And then I have a summary slide. The summary, again, this is now, I probably would cut this in half. But I also wanted to have a quote from a teacher on here, and maybe that could have been somewhere else. But the summary slide is important. And then you just say thank you. And then that is that. But did someone, oh, great. Did we get that all in there? Perfect. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So confidential slide, tee up slide, marketing slide, then the video, product concept slide, summary slide, and thank you slide. Now,
Thanks,
if I
Billy.
was pitching a typical game, right? This game was very simple. You flip over cards, you make it. The concept slide. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Billy Rose. The concept slide can be a couple how to play. Concept slide could be, let's take our sell sheet and split it up. Let's take our sell sheet and show the contents and list them on one slide. Then it could be, let's show how to play in 1 or 2 slides, like 1, 2, 3 steps, right? And then you break it down that way for the concept slide. So depending on how many steps or how in depth your game is, right, you can break it down further. Because think about this, whatever you're doing, whether it is a sell sheet or a presentation, you want to give that next person the ability to pitch your game. Think about, what can I leave them with so they can pitch it to the next meeting of 10 people, because I only got to pitch it to this one, and now this one person has to pitch it to maybe 10 people, and if they like it, then they're going to ask to play test my game, right? So whatever it is, the combination of sizzle video and sell sheet, or sizzle video and presentation deck, whatever you choose to do, make sure you give them enough information that at least pops to them and can let that other person pitch to you. But don't make it so, don't think, oh, now I've got to write everything in there and I got to write a book so this person can pitch and say what I say. Don't do it that way, because you always can. Sometimes they will ask for your game rules or game directions, and you can have it in there too. Okay. So depending on the company, they may ask for that right away, or if they like the initial review, then they ask for the directions to review.
I want to point out too, with the aesthetic of your pitch deck, a lot of folks get caught up with that part of it. Like how professional does it need to look? Does it need to look like it was done by a graphic designer, like a professional graphic designer? And I want to know, yours is very simple.
It's very simple.
Space, you know, a lot of room, nothing fancy, no bells and whistles, just the very basic, and that's enough to get the idea across, which is the most important thing. So I think that's really, really helpful. Thank you so much for sharing that, April.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I will say, you know, that was done, what, 3 years ago now, right? And so now I will probably, I think it's nice to have a header on your slides and have the name of the game on the header. And then that way it's in every slide, and have a color scheme, right? That just stays with it. And, you know, I was still learning pitch decks at that time. So like it was a lot for me to do all that, but I've been really enjoying, you know, the Google Docs and Canva, and there's so many different, you know, places to go to do different things. But just go where you're comfortable and learn something and stick with it and really just get it good. But as you can see, it was not amazing. You could tell I'm not a designer. But what it did was, between the video and that, it piqued their interest, right? And it got them to say, hey, this is interesting and this is neat, so maybe we want to play test it.
Yeah, and I like that idea though too, adding the title to each pitch deck, because that starts to make the name of your product, the name of the game, part of their language, part of their, you know, it becomes familiar to them without them even knowing it half the time, like a little neuro-linguistic programming. So that's such a great tip too. I really love that. Okay, the time has flown, as I suspected. I want to get to some questions. I know, Betty, you had a question. Let's get into the audience questions. You guys, if you want, you can start typing them in the chat. Wolfie has a question. Where's Betty? Is Betty here? Do you want to? Oh, there's. Hi. Hey, Betty.
Hi. My question was regarding the. She was saying that she had got a deal, but it took like what, 2-3 years before it ended up on the market. So my question is, once you sign a deal with them, do you get an advance, or do you get paid, or do you not get paid for your idea until it is out on the market?
Thanks,
Good
Betty.
question. Good question. So uh, every license agreement is different, and I will say the toy and game industry is very good about giving advances for the most part. Now, some companies are smaller and they just say we can't, but we can get it out in this timeline. And then you have to decide if you're okay with that or not.
Right.
And then some will say we will give you this much upon signing, and then when the first shipment is out, then we give you this other amount, and then after that is paid off from your royalties, like once you actually earn that in your royalties, then you will start getting, the quarterly royalty checks. So I've seen it all different. I've had them all different. If I don't like, what's really important to me is if there's not, I try my best to get a small advance, but it doesn't always work that way. But if there's not an advance, I think it's very, very important. And again, I'm not a licensing lawyer. This is just from my own experience, but I think it's important for me, it is to have a timeline. And if that timeline isn't met, I have the right, but not obligation, to take my idea back. Like if it's in a
Okay.
shipment on the way here, to be sold, it would be silly of me to take it back when they're about to sell it, right?
Right.
So you really got to make sure that language is correct in the contract for your benefit. But I was, it's going to depend on the person and your situation, right? Someone might say, well, I wouldn't take that deal right away with no advance, but maybe if it's you've tried everybody else and nobody else has passed, you'd be happy for a deal even without an advance, right? Or it might just be your first deal and you're so excited, or maybe you really want to work with that company, and even though they're smaller and they don't give an advance, you know that it's this partnership and it's going to be worth it because they love the idea and they're passionate about it, and they're going to make it worth your while without that advance. So every situation's different, but the toy and game industry does often see advances.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Good question.
Wolfie, I think you're next. Thanks,
Hi
Betty.
there.
Hi,
Thank you,
Wilkie.
thank you, April. So it seems to me like you treat partnership as on a project basis, whereas the usual thing, or I at least have always thought, it's like partnership is like almost like a company. There are even legal partnerships where you set up a partnership or a company and it's like fixed for everything. But you do it on a project by project basis. That's a new line of thinking for me, and it's very helpful. So could you elaborate on that a little more?
Yes. I'm
I
glad
mean,
you brought
how do you deal with that legally, so to speak, if you know what I mean?
Right.
Thanks,
You know what?
Wolfie.
Some people will have a document signed for their product or their project, or just whenever they work together, right? But what's important is to have licensing contracts in both parties' names. And so that way, for me anyway, I learned this the tough way. So that way, one person isn't receiving the royalties and then having to write a check to the other person for the other half. That way, you're both on it and the companies are paying you both. Now, I have heard of some people will rate certain tasks, I guess, in a partnership and figure out their percentage that way. I think that's tough. If people do that, people have to do what works best for them. But I think a lot of people don't realize the time it takes. And I think you guys do, if you hear it, you've pitched products before, how long it takes to get into companies and follow up and the pitching and all of that. I think that can often be, I don't know, not seen as the real realities of how long that takes and how many hours, like man hours, right? That takes. So I do. So that's something to consider when partnering with someone. Is my point of saying that. But when partnering, it is project based, and sometimes one of us will start with a spark of an idea, or we might come to a meeting and have no ideas and be like, all right, let's just start throwing things out there, and we'll just start brainstorming completely from scratch. But yeah, I do work with several different partners, and it is on a product to product or product to project basis on that product. So yeah.
So I'm assuming probably you have a company set up for yourself, like an LLC or something. I'm guessing.
Correct. Yes.
But do you, in addition, whenever a new project, say it's a bigger project, more important one, you think it's more important, do you set up a specific company or LLC or anything for a new project? Or how do you do that? Or does the other partner, in quotation mark, have their own company? Or how does it work?
So I have not done that thus far. So I have my own LLC, my partners have their own LLCs, and then we just work on a project together. And when it gets licensed, we're both on the contract. And so the contract is in both our LLC's names with then the company that we license to. And it actually works out really nice and simple that way. You know, it's a funny industry. I feel like I hope this doesn't come across too bad, but it's like we're swingers, but within like inventor friends, like, but only inventing, not like the other stuff. It's like we're inventing swinger. Like we're like, let's partner here. And oh, this was fun. Let's partner here. And that kind of thing. And so I have a few different partners, and we typically stay like in certain different categories in a sense. And sometimes we cross over some of the same categories with different partners. But the thing to do is, I would say, start off with one, maybe two. But once you have a few partners, you have to be like, oh, no, that's too close to something else I'm working on. I can't go down that road. And then you got to redirect, because sometimes a game or any product can start right in one as like one idea, and then it like totally takes a 180 and it's somewhere else where, you know, like it can just totally change. So if you have a lot of different projects and a lot of different partners, it can be confusing. So it's something you have to, you know, consider.
Very good. Very interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to get to Serena, and then I will be getting to some of the questions in the chat. So Serena, we only have about 5 minutes left.
Okay, I'll be real quick. First off, Jennifer, thank you so much for arranging this with April. And April, I really appreciate your time, like sharing all your wisdom with us. It's so valuable. Okay, so I've been working for about 3 months in pitching and trying to license my product. And real quick, so LinkedIn, email calls, trade shows. I'm looking into going to some trade shows that are perfect for my industry. The trade show that I want to go to is $1,100, which I'm trying to figure out that one. So would you say LinkedIn is your number one? And then do you do cold calling to companies?
You know what? I would say I do not cold call companies often in the toy and game industry anymore, because I feel like LinkedIn most often works. I would also say, depending on the industry, a lot of times there's like chat boxes or their websites that you can talk to. I've recently got into a few companies like from their website doing that whole like fill out ask a question kind of thing. And I say, hi, I'm a professional developer. I have a product I think is perfect for your company. Can you please point me in the right direction? And I have gotten emailed me back, and they'll be like, yes, please email so-and-so. So try that too. It's amazing.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, of course. And sometimes it's hard to find companies' corporate or headquarters phone number. Oh my gosh. And they can take you like on all these loops and everything. But that's fun too. And even like, bless you, even like the Facebook or Instagram, like try messaging their accounts there as well, like any social media and websites. And it's fantastic. I was so surprised when I like heard back from chat boxes and emails asking for the right person, and I get the email. So that's great. But I will say trade shows are amazing. If you can swing it, don't ever like go broke doing it, but it's building the relationships. And then there's so many companies that you may not even know exist, but don't forget the trade show website has their list of, you know, vendors, and use that if you're not able to go this, time around. and just print that list off and just start going through it because it makes a big difference too. But I tell you, trade shows has been really amazing for me personally because of the relationship introductions and building, and it's been huge. I know everyone doesn't have the opportunity to do that, and you still can get into this industry. I've licensed things because I've gone to trade shows and met people, and I've licensed things without even being connected to the person on LinkedIn. So you know what I mean? So don't feel like you have to do it any certain way, because it's every project and every company, every situation is different. So don't feel like April only uses LinkedIn or primarily uses LinkedIn. We've got to do this way, or trade shows are great. Yes. But I always feel like if you're determined, you're going to find a way, whether you can get to that trade show or not, whether you can find your phone number or not, like you will find a way.
I've
And
already found I think I found it in for this trade show, just offering because I'm a personal assistant. So I'm like,
Mhm.
I will offer you my assistant services for a day if you get me into this show.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, even figure out who else is going, right? Or company you'd like to work with.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
you
thank you
seem
so much.
determined. Yes,
Yeah.
you're welcome. I'm gonna hear like updates. I just know like Serena got in and she's boom, boom, boom doing all this stuff. That's fantastic. And Jennifer, I can run a few minutes late. I'm feeling okay. So just I
That's
appreciate you trying to be
definitely fine to be
conscious of my time. But
Thank you
yeah.
so much. All right, we will still try to keep it short. So I'm going to ask you a couple quick fire questions from the chat here.
Okay.
Did you file provisional patents when you pitched your games, or did the companies end up patenting them for you, or was there no patent?
Good question. I think I've filed PPAs on a few of the dozens. I don't file PPAs on the majority of them because the majority of them I don't feel can be actually patented. So if I have some unique utility, some new like actual product within that game that I created, then I will file a PPA, but it is not often because I find that game mechanics just aren't something that can be patented very often. So
Thank you for that. So Teddy asked, and that was from Jude. Thanks, Jude, and thanks for the reminder. Teddy has asked, do you ever send more than one idea to a company at a time?
yes, good question. So in the game industry, if I can get a meeting with someone, I will pitch them as many as I can in a meeting. So if it's a 25-30 minute meeting, typically that's 4 to 5 games in that meeting. I have a problem right now where I have one new game my partner and I are really excited about, and we're like, I don't have anything else ready. Do we want to tell anybody we have this ready yet? But we're really excited. And so what we decided was we're going to reach out to our top people for this game and let them know we just have one thing and see if they're up for a meeting for one item. But typically I don't usually schedule a meeting for one thing if I have more, or if I know I have more in the works. If you have one amazing idea and that is like what you've got, and you can get a meeting or someone says, send it to me, send it to them. Now, I will say, if I have a company that is excited about an idea and they're currently play testing that awesome idea, I am not going to set up a meeting for new ideas yet or send them other videos until I hear back, because I don't want to distract them from what they do love. Right. So then this happened recently where they're like, we love this and we want to license this, and they're play testing a couple games. I don't even mention the other game. If they are all excited about one, that's what we focus on. And we take that all the way to town. Okay, now you've licensed it. Now, hey, what about that other one you're playing? Any thoughts on that one, right? And I won't send them anything until they've done play testing that one either, just so that they stay focused on what they do like.
That's helpful. Okay, and when you do reach out to a company, do you only send a sell sheet, or you said you don't do sell sheets, so are you just sending a sizzle reel and then you hold on to the pitch deck until you get a meeting?
It depends. If I only have one chance and they don't want to meet, then I'll send the sizzle and the pitch decks.
Okay.
Sometimes if it's somebody new, I might just send the sizzles and
Yeah.
then wait on the pitch deck. So it really depends. But if I'm
Okay.
trying to get a meeting, then I will just try to get a meeting, and I won't send them, it'll be it'll be a, hey, I've got some new concepts, can we jump on a call, in the next couple of weeks, and then I, ask for their calendar or whatever. But if they only like me to send them sizzle videos, then that's what I'll do. Then I'll just send them the videos. Now, I will say, I've had a couple companies say, hey, we still in the hobby area still really like sell sheets, because they will look at us. This one company specifically looks at the sell sheet to see if they want to watch the sizzle video.
Mhm.
And that is one of the reasons why I didn't always like to send the the presentation or the sell sheet and the video, because I want them to see it in action. If I have one choice for them to look at something, I want them to see my video over anything else, because my video, I feel like, tells the best story of all of them.
Right, right. Yeah, if you only got one shot, use your best, visual, whatever that might be. That's such a great point. Okay, two very end questions here, and we will let you go. So one very quick one: do you copyright your games, ideas, rules?
I do not, but I do think companies do, and I do have a couple games that we're trying to trademark the name of the game. So one game I have coming out actually any time this month. It's an outdoor games. It's called Bam's Ball, and that's how I pitched it. That's what I called it, and they liked the name of it. And so we're trying to get that trademarked, and then another. Well, two games that were licensed last year. It sounds like they're going to try to keep the name. The companies are going to try to keep the name, so then that will be, I'm sure those will be trademarked and trademarked, and then the rules will be copyrighted. But then what I try to do in my contracts is I try to have it in there, and I don't always get it, the right to buy at value any IP they get, trademarks, copyrights, should we, when the contract is over. That way, if say it runs 3 years and I think, well, maybe I want to try to sell it, or maybe I want to try to relicense it. Once in a while, companies will license something that's already been on the market. It's not very typical, but I at least want to be able to purchase the rights to that just in case. And most companies I find are pretty good about that. But then some are like, what, you're already thinking about the end time of, we're just trying to get this started. So, anyway.
That's helpful. Another helpful tip. Thank you for that. And then lastly, Sean Davis asks, what are your goals for 2024?
Wow.
Longest question yet, based on what I know.
That's a fantastic question. You know what? I have a lot of goals, probably too many to list here. Well, my goal is for all of the products that are supposed to come out. And as much as we as inventors think we have a say in things, we don't always have control in everything. So even though things are, so that is one goal, and hope that everything does come out that it's supposed to. And then I always have a crazy licensing goal. Like my goal is insane amounts that I would like to license. And then we have the tabletop game design course with Ed Garton and I. We have a big announcement in the next couple of weeks about that. Something new and different about that course we're really excited to share is coming. So I'm excited about that goal. But I don't know, but my goal someday is to be inventor of the year and get a taggy at Shine Tag one year. So hopefully fingers crossed. But you know what? I just really love sharing any tips or information that I can. Because I learn from so many different people, and having amazing inventor relations, people that have just really fed into me and given me great feedback so that I could learn and I could be better. And I think it's so important for us to then share what we're learning so that we can just keep things going, like keep that domino effect going. And so if you're already not connected with me on LinkedIn, definitely connect with me. Let me know you were, you came here tonight, and I'll automatically accept your connection. I had a couple weird requests lately, so it's gotten me a little shy. I've been now like being a little more careful with who I'm accepting. I've had some weird things lately. But let me know you're here, and I'll definitely accept it. And every Thursday, Ed Garten and I give a tip in the toy and game industry. And on Friday, I post a video about my weekly just life as an inventor, and then some kind of information or tip as well. So, and I'm trying to get my YouTube channel back up and going with all that information, so it's all just in one place. But seriously, I really just want to say thanks again for having me. And if there's any other questions, and I've heard, is Ed coming on sometime, maybe?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's one of the announcements. We have
Oh,
Ed Garden.
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay. Oh, that's all right. This is perfect. We do have Ed Garden. He's joining us on February 22nd. So we'll get the insider scoop from somebody that's been in the industry for decades. And on the other side of things, I'm so excited to hear from him too. So maybe you'll join us during that meeting, but I know you're busy. Let's not forget April's also a mom with a billion kids. So I don't know how you do it.
Oh, too funny. Well, you guys are in a treat with Ed. And he was one of the inventor relations that gave me such good feedback and helped me get to where I am today. So I hope you all are able to make that one, because it'll be fantastic. Fantastic. He's great.
Absolutely. So April, as we wrap up tonight's roundtable, I just want to extend a heartfelt thank you for so generously giving of your time and sharing your wealth of experience. Your journey has not only inspired, but also illuminates the path for many inspiring inventors and designers in the toy and game industry. Your insights, your advice, your stories have undoubtedly enriched our understanding and sparked further curiosity. Your dedication to innovation, education, and mentorship is truly commendable, and we're all grateful for the opportunity to learn from somebody as accomplished and visionary as you. Thank you for contributing to a memorable and enlightening discussion, and for helping foster a community that supports creativity and growth. As I think it's safe to speak for all of us, we so very much wish you a continued success with your upcoming projects, and look forward to witnessing the further impact of your work on the industry. So again, April, thank you so much for being such a remarkable guest and incredible source of inspiration for us all.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for being great listeners and showing up today, because I tell you, that is the key, is learning, right? And if we're not open to learning, then we're just not going to go anywhere in this industry.
100%.
So I think that's just the first step. And I will say, when you want to give up, if you haven't already, like, keep going, because I tell you, you'll start to, that will lessen, right? You'll want to give up less and less and less and less, like just keep going, because if I would have given up the hundreds of times I wanted to, I wouldn't be here talking to you today and sharing my story and helping you out. And you've got a story to share to others too. So keep it going. And thanks for having me and for the kind words. So
Of course. Thank you so much. And now just a few notes. April, also, I do hope you feel better, but for anybody that wants to stick around for some topics based on the roundtable group, I have a couple things to mention. One, as we did just put out there, mark your calendars. You do not want to miss February 22nd with Ed Garten. Again, he is on the other end. He's been looking at submissions for decades and is a wealth of information, and it's incredibly generous of him to be joining us as well. So make sure you're around for that. For our study hall hours, I'm going to be posting the poll again in the group. We are now up to almost 170 members, which is outrageous. And I want to see what times work best for all of you. I am planning a very soft launch for our extended study hall, enrichment, after hours, hangouts for Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern time and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. That is if I can stay awake long enough and get up early enough. But I do really want to try to find times that work for the people that are either doing a 9 to 5 or you're abroad or you just can't make the other times when we all meet. So please take a moment to chime in and let me know what your times, your ideal times look like in the poll. A couple other things I wanted to get your opinion on, and you can post in the chat or message me later or raise your hand. Would anybody be interested in hearing from a copywriter or a professional public speaker? Does that appeal to anybody before I start begging my friends for help here? Is that something, I know a lot of us get stuck on the outreach and putting yourself out there. The ideas are no problem, but you really need a little hand. Okay, so I see some hands. It sounds, Celeste, oh, and wait, where's Celeste? You're here. Celeste is joining us again from South Africa. So good to see you. Thank you for being with us at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, some ungodly hour. Okay, so again, a copywriter, a public speaker. We don't have to be the marketers for our products, but I don't think it hurts to be able to tell a good story. And that's why I'm thinking getting a copywriter on would be a really great sort of opportunity. The other thing I'm thinking about doing is a mock pitch session. So maybe a few of us would play the company heads, the director, maybe the person that answers the phone, and we'd have a few of you join in the conversation as people pitching. Now, you wouldn't be pitching your own products. Maybe you'd pitch something that we've already discussed, something that's already been part of the roundtable. Like, for example, Dennis Diener's multifunctional highlighter. So you would, pretend you're Dennis, pretend it's your idea. You would start making the calls, start trying to reach out to the people that are in charge and get the feedback just to kind of have that practice. It would be another opportunity for you to show up, to practice being on screen, to practice speaking to others on screen, to make sure your lighting is right, to make sure your sound quality is clear, to make sure your visuals look fresh and tight and clear. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, please let me know, because it's been something I've been trying to navigate. How can I do this in a way that would be effective? So it's not the easiest thing to figure out, but again, let me know if that's something that interests you. And then I think, I think that's going to be it for now. You guys, it's been a long one. It's been an incredible one. April, you're the GOAT. Thank you again for doing this.
Thank you, April.
Such a great experience. I know everyone has gleaned so much information from this call, and we could talk for another 15 hours probably, but for now, we'll let you go. We'll let you start your day, dudes in the Philippines, and we'll let you go to sleep, Celeste in South Africa, and everybody else have an extremely wonderful night. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart for being part of this community, for helping support each other, and let's keep going, keep innovating. And hey, actually, while I remember, if everyone can say licensing deal, that might create a good visual that I can make this a little screenshot for the YouTube channel. So on 3, 1, 2, 3, licensing
Licensing
deal.
Thank you, Jennifer, and
Thank you, Jennifer.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, April.
you.
Always an
Everyone.
inspiration. Great seeing you.
Yeah, it's good seeing you.
Take great care,
Bye.
everybody. And
Bye.
please let me know. You know how to reach me.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thanks, Jennifer.
You're welcome. My pleasure. It's so nice to meet so many new faces tonight. Have a really great night, everybody. Stay safe. Be well.
Hi, Jen.
You're rocking it.
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate your continued support. Thanks, Pam. Bye, Norman. Bye, Wolfie. Get your LinkedIn.
Bye.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Wow. Bye.
Thanks for cracking the whip.
Oh, again, no, Wolfie, I couldn't even message you. I found your fake account, but I still couldn't message you because
I really appreciate you.
I hope so. It'll probably get old soon, so you better get that LinkedIn sorted out. All right, I gotta run. I'll see you guys
Okay.
later. Have a great night.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jen. Bye.
Bye, Edgar. Bye, everybody.